Hi, everybody. If you're sticking around for the Enterprise IT Services session, we'd like to get that rolling. If you are still networking from the TEM, we'd ask if you can take that out into the hallway, but please come back. We've got wonderful things to talk about enterprise services here. Thank you. I am not giving away money. That's Catherine. Yeah, but I think I just saw her out there. Go chase her down. Okay, that's good to know. So, you shift her back over one.
I will.
Yeah, sounds good. These chairs are like low. I mean, now I know I'm also short, but
Thank you, Justin.
what? I mean, you were doing that, but also with kind of a death stare. Like,
Okay, good morning.
good morning, Shevon.
Thank you, Molly. My name is Shevon Harris. I am the Don CIO Enterprise Services Lead, and I am here with Molly Johnson.
Hello, Molly Johnson. I am the ASNRDA Enterprise Services Lead. So we have this as a partnership between our two organizations.
Yes. Okay, so guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ms. Rathman is not here, but thank you, Ms. Rathman, for allowing us the opportunity to present today and just give you guys a good overview of enterprise services. We've come a long way since we spoke last year at West and at East, so we're just excited to talk about all the designated enterprise services that have come to play. And we'll just go ahead and jump right in, okay?
Awesome.
So on yesterday, we had the opportunity to hear from many leaders of the Navy and other organizations and how they have fully aligned themselves in the work that they are doing with ISV 2.0. And so Molly and I have done the same with the Don Enterprise IT Services. We are completely aligned with ISV 2.0. And with that, just a quick overview of what ISV 2.0 is for those who weren't there on yesterday. It's about urgently solving mission problems, accelerating emerging technology, and getting better at business IT to enable sailors and Marines to fight through and win in a contested information environment today and in the future. So those enterprise IT services that we are pushing out are completely aligned with that mission. Enterprise IT services falls under the optimized pillar that was discussed on yesterday, and the main objective is to build once and use often. And we want to deliver and leverage modern core enterprise IT services that reduce complexity, optimize investments, and improve customers' experience. So with that, what is an enterprise IT service? Many of you asked, right? Yes? No? No one's asking that? Okay, well.
That just means they can come give the brief, and we can sit down and.
I think so. I don't think they need us up here. So enterprise IT services are a mature technology, and it needs to be paired with an actual appropriate use case. So you can't have one without the other. You need to have a use case paired with the solution. The service needs to be at an operational maturity level that can be scaled across the naval enterprise from both technical and the business perspective, address known and or validate requirements, and provide an optimal enterprise solution. These services that are being designated are either designated as mandatory for use or preferred for use, and those definitions are explained here on the screen. The capability of the service or offering must meet an average operational level or higher on the Enterprise IT Service Standard and Criteria Assessment that we're going to review with you in a couple of slides later. So also on yesterday, we had the pleasure of meeting and hearing from Ms. Leslie Beavers, the DoD CIO. And in that discussion, I heard her outline the digital modernization strategy. And with that, she outlined 4 points: that these services need to be functional, scalable, sustainable, and secure. So if you can remember those 4 things as we go through this discussion, you will also see how we have also aligned with that DoD strategy as well with these Don Enterprise IT services. On the screen, you see our overview of the designation process. Again, this process has come a long way. We have been able to get it down from what used to be I don't know, 6 to 8 months.
I was going to say year and a half.
Yeah, well, year and a half, right? To something a lot smaller. We're working in a window of about 60 days from the time that you start your assessment to the time that something can be designated now. Yesterday, I heard everyone saying, move faster, move faster, move faster. We want to move faster as well. So we looked at the process. We really tried to go through and figure out where some of the pain points were and got rid of some of those things, worked with leadership to clean up the governance process and the approval process to shorten down that window now to about 60 days. So again, this process is here on the screen, and as we go through the demo, we'll dive into this process a little bit more. The effectiveness and criteria standards are, this set of standards is used as we evaluate all enterprise IT services. It's nice to have a set benchmark of things so you know you are comparing and evaluating services that are fair across the board. So every service that goes through this process, we use the same set of standards to evaluate them to see if they are mature enough to be a non-enterprise IT service. The benchmarks are listed below. It's either you're rated from initial to ideal. If you remember back on the first slide, we said that a service that is going to be a non-enterprise service needs to measure at an operational level. So as you go through the assessment and these standards are being graded, you need to measure at the end of an average of an operational in order to even be considered for designation. And so here are some of the highlights of services that have been designated so far. So Naval IME, was our first non-enterprise IT service, and that solution provided a modeling environment. It is being used. Several people love it. The team is definitely working to continue to put out new things just to continue to make the service better. Some things you can look for next as you use Naval IME are increased network availability and speed, optimized license use, the integration of Cameo and other applications to develop a data management strategy, TSSCI ATO for the Q2 FY25, and they plan to deploy a training environment. So if you are using Naval IME and you're looking forward to see what's next, these are some of the things you can look forward to. The NIST team, NIST was also designated as a Naval Enterprise Service. With NIST, some of the things that are coming up next is the integration with Hyperion and Flank Speed ongoing. This is ongoing and set to be complete by the end of FY25. They are also automating onboarding, IL6 build-out, and DDIL deployment with C4I. The NIST team has a session to further explain their capabilities and requirements later on today in this same room. So please attend that and hear a little bit more about Naval Identity Service. NESD, the Naval Enterprise Service Desk. This is our centralized service desk for providing automated service capabilities across all service desk tiers and Tier 1 support agents. Things to look forward to when using NESD is the enhanced digital dashboards, problems managed with cluster analysis, and Amelia GPT. Cosmos is one of the last to be designated. Cosmos was designated as a scalable, unclassified Gov Cloud environment for impacts levels 1 through 5. It meets developers' mission requirements and removes current mission owners' challenges. The Cosmos team is also here, and they will be having a deep dive on Thursday morning, 10:30 a.m. So please stick around on Thursday to hear more from the Cosmo team. And the last enterprise service that was designated was a combination memo that went out for Flank Speed and Hyperion. And so how many people in the room are using Flank Speed and Hyperion to do work? So I would say this is a pretty good designation, right? Okay, so we know exactly what this designation was about. Specifically, this designation encompasses all M365 and Azure Cloud services utilizing Impact Level 5, software as a service, and IL5-6 platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service solution. So you have your productivity service and your messaging services that was under that designation. So that was a quick overview. I mean, we really didn't want to use our time to really dive into a PowerPoint. We want to show you the cool technology that we've really been working hard on to develop to speed up the assessment process for enterprise services. Again, what was taking 18 months, we're really trying to speed up. We know that there are services out there that are worth being evaluated and going through an enterprise service assessment. So we've been working to build this assessment tool, and we just really hope you enjoy what you see. So if you could please bring up the demo.
Department of Navy Enterprise IT Service Assessment and Selection Tool. This tool is currently under development, and so this is a preliminary demonstration. Some of the capabilities are not yet fully finished, but this will give you a sense of what the tool will be like when it is complete. The first thing that you will do when you are wanting to be considered for an enterprise IT service designation is to complete a pre-assessment. And when this tool is live, you'll do that through this tool by coming here and clicking the pre-assessment form. Now, when this form loads for you, it will load with all of the blank fields. I have pre-filled this out for the purposes of this demonstration. But when it loads, it will be all empty except for your email. Your email will be plugged in based on the FlankSpeed account that you are logged in with when you complete this form. This is being built out in Power Apps native to FlankSpeed. So you can see here, I have used the information from the Cosmos submission for their pre-assessment before they were designated as an enterprise IT service to fill this out and give a sense of the type of information that we are looking for here. No amount of detail is too small. The justification and the problem statement and the justification for why your capability will address that problem, having detail there that will help explain it, will give us the information that we need to have an informed discussion with you on whether your capability is a good candidate to be an enterprise IT service. You will see that there are a few buttons over here. If you want to save your work and come back and finish it later, but not yet ready to submit it, that's what the Save button is for. The Submit button will be when you are ready, you have completed all of the fields, and you are ready to submit the pre-assessment form for consideration. Clicking the Submit button will then kick it out of your control, and it will now be in an in-review status, and you won't be able to edit it. So you won't want to click the Submit button until you are actually ready to submit it. The additional data fields down here are drop-downs for identifying what your service or capability is, where you are in the life cycle. Again, this is information, none of which will automatically rule you out or in of consideration for being an enterprise IT service. This is information that we're looking for so that we can make an informed decision on whether your capability will meet an enterprise need and whether it's mature enough at this point in time to be considered as an enterprise IT service. The other key pieces that we're looking for here are describing who your current user base is, who currently uses your tool, your capability, your service, and then if you are wanting to expand beyond that current user base, who is your target user base? This could be based on commands or organizations. This could be based on a specific community. For example, here for Cosmos is targeted towards R&D mission owners, research and development mission owners. You could be targeting the HR community, the logistics community. So that would be an example of what you might plug in here for your target user base. The final questions that we are asking are getting into your funding status for your resource sponsor and your budget submitting office, and then any additional information that you would like to provide. And then we, at the end here, we ask for you to upload your documentation that shows your current funding status for the current FIDIP, for the current fiscal year plus the next 4 years. This could be a POM briefing or issue paper that you have. This could be an extract from PBIS IT to show your current POM status, but this gives us more information about your current funding status. Once you have completed all of this information, again, you will click Submit, and this will kick it over to Shevon and I for us to take a look at and be in touch with you on whether or not we believe that your service or capability is a good candidate to complete the full self-assessment. Once we have made a determination that your IT service or capability is a good candidate to be considered for enterprise IT service designation, we will then have you fill out a self-assessment. That is also done through this tool, and you will see now that this blue button in the middle for self-assessment is now active and you are able to click on it. That's because from the admin end, we have approved your pre-assessment and it has gone to the next phase. So you would click here on your self-assessment. And again, this is going to load just like with the pre-assessment with your email address. Now, it does not ask repeat questions from the pre-assessment, but the information that you provide here is a continuation and is added to the overall record for the information that you submitted for the pre-assessment. This first screen is where you're going to fill out the overview of the service that you are putting forward for enterprise service consideration. So you're going to fill in your information here about the service or capability provider. That's a government organization, not the vendor that provides the back end of the solution. And then other additional information here on the overview of the capability that you are providing. When you've completed this, as with the pre-assessment, you have a save button that you can click, and that will save where you are right now, but won't submit it, or you can click next and go to the next screen, which will also save your information. As you can see here on this information slide, this is leading into the set of screens where you will be grading yourself against a given set of standards and criteria. These standards and criteria are defined in and explained in the Naval Information Technology Service Standards memo that will be linked on this screen as well. And this will get into a series of questions where you will grade yourself from 1 being the most immature score to 4 being the most mature score. So initial to minimum viable to operational to ideal. And each one of the criteria that we have on here provides details as to what constitutes initial, minimum viable, operational, or ideal for each of the elements for you to grade yourself. On each of the criteria screens, you are going to see this same look here, a box at the top that has the criteria that you are grading yourself against, a box here on the left for you to enter your score for how you are grading yourself, and then an open text box here for you to provide a justification for how or why you scored yourself as you did for each of the criteria. The first set of criteria is performance criteria. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm not going to plug in data from here on out. I'm going to click through to show the additional screens. Then we have service management criteria that is looking at demand, affordability, sustainability. Our next set of criteria is on your information security, so your authorization assessment and your zero trust enablement information. Then we are going to get into a question that asks if your service or capability is a DevSecOps service or capability. If you answer yes, that is going to bring you to additional software modernization service performance criteria that you will grade yourself against, as you did with the other criteria. If you answer no to this, it will bypass those software modernization standards, and you will not need to score yourself against those if they are not applicable to you. When you click no, or if you clicked yes and you scored yourself against all of the software modernization criteria, the next set of questions you are going to get is dealing with your service financial business model. In the pre-assessment, you provided some initial upfront information on your current funding status, if you are fully funded, and some of that information. This is now digging into greater detail on your financial business model and how you currently manage and are able to manage your service or capability based on acquisition and PPBE processes. So you'll see here questions asking if you're an acquisition program of record. If you answer yes to this, then you will provide your acquisition category based on the defined acquisition category selections here. If we then ask you to identify your primary funding structure, whether you are centrally funded, if you are fee for service, in other words, a working capital fund service center, if you are cost allocation model or other. If you select centrally funded, then we will ask you to select the way you are centrally funded. Same goes if you select that you have a cost allocation funding model, we ask you to provide some additional information on what that is. And if you select other, then we have an open text box for you to explain what your other funding model is that we don't have identified in the drop-down menu. The next question that we get to is asking if your current cost estimates that you've provided, that you are providing with us, have been validated by your resource sponsor. And this is just a yes or no question. When we go to the next screen, this is now getting into information on how you grade yourself. Do you have performance measures and metrics in place? With the first question being a yes or no. And if you answer yes, then we ask you what type of metrics are in use. Right now, the options we have are world-class alignment metrics or other. If you select that you are utilizing world-class alignment metrics, then we will ask you to select which of the WAMs you are using. If you select other, then we will ask you to provide us information on the performance measures that you are using. The key for us here is to see that you are using performance measures and to get a sense of how you are grading yourself and how your end users and your customers are able to provide feedback through measures and metrics on the performance of your service or capability. The last part of the self-assessment is attaching documents. As you can see here, we are going to provide a list of additional documents that we will need to be attached here, but this will be along the lines of any documentation supporting the metrics that you use, the performance measures and metrics that you use, any additional funding or resourcing information, your resourcing financial model, information that will explain that and help provide any amplification on the information that you provided in the form. When this is complete, you will click the submit button here, and that will submit it to the enterprise services team, and we will be in touch with you as we have a chance to look through it. The next step after you submit the self-assessment is that we engage with the Council of Colonels, and collectively we look at the information that you provided. We invite you to come meet with us to talk through and step through your assessment to provide any information, answer any questions that we might have, and have a really good and productive dialogue on what your service or capability is. But that ends the portion that is utilizing our new e-tool for the pre-assessment and the self-assessment. And thank you for your time today.
All right. So, thank you. I'm a lot more brief when I pre-record things than when I just go off the cuff, because the first run at recording that was over 20 minutes, so you're welcome. You're welcome for recording it in advance. Yes. If you sat through my sessions before, you know I can go for a long time. But there at the end of the demo mentioned that the next step after you submit your self-assessment is that it goes to the Council of Colonels. So thought we would take this time to go back here to the diagram of kind of the process overview to touch on that a little bit. To get a sense of what that's evolved over this last year, and that's part of the process improvements that Shevon and I put in place to add a little bit more upfront rigor. If you've got your 3 stars and your 4 stars that are asking, are you fully funded, and it's not been asked before, we've not done our due diligence at our level. So we formed a group of 06 GS15, Council of Colonels, Council of Captains, somebody called it Council of Old Dirty Birds. That was a retired 06, so you know they've got that sense of humor. That has, some of the representatives are here in the room today. We have Nathan Hagan from N2N6. We have Beth Caswell from Don CIO. Some of the PEO Digital folks were in here earlier. We also have representation from DAS and RDT&E, the Don Chang, and the TD shops from PEO Digital, PEO MLB, and PEO C4I. Because as you saw there in the demo, what we're looking at is, and we have representation from Catherine Cunningham's team from the resourcing side at Don CIO as well. What you saw in the demo is that, yes, we are assessing against technical standards, but your ability to be an enterprise service is not just about its ability to meet tech requirements for a mission need. It's also about your program's maturity to be able to expand your user base and actually be able to provide that capability to a broader user base than what you have now. Are you programmatically sound? Are you financially sound? If you're not, do you have a plan to get that way? Are you engaged with your resource sponsors? So that's why we dig into some of those questions. We know there's no new money coming, and a lot of times we are digging for couch change to make things happen, and you guys do amazing things with the very little resources that we're able to get for you. And so, like we said in the demo, none of the answers that you provide will automatically rule you out or rule you in, but as Shevon said earlier, to be designated, to kind of cross over that next threshold to actually be designated as an enterprise IT service, we're looking for you to be at an operational level where you can roll out and you can provide your capability. You're not piloting, you're not knocking on the door of MVP, you're actually ready to start providing capabilities. What that may look like, as was the example with NIS when they first came through. NIS was operational for they still had some things in flight. There are things that NIS does now that is not encompassed by their current enterprise IT service designation, because at the time that they were assessed, those pieces of that capability were not yet mature enough to be considered. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's not a wait until you are fully deployed and you've got everything under the sun that you ever wish to do to come and talk to us. It's a conversation, and it starts a relationship for us to be able to iterate with you as your capability matures, and provide that support to get the word out on what your capability is and get that out to the broader user base. So I think that's kind of it on what we were going to talk at you about, but want to open the floor for any questions you have for us on the process. We do have some of our capability owners in here today. If you have questions about theirs, not all are here, some are in other sessions, and will be here later in the week. And as Shevon said, most, I think all but one, have a session at this conference for you all to learn more about. So there's a microphone in the back, and I see, Nathan, are you lining up to ask a question or to run out the back door?
I'll make a comment more than a question, so I think we're on here. As noted, Nathan Hagan, I am one of the members of the Council of Colonels. I just want to add and commend Molly and Shevon. The work in putting together this sort of user form is intended to make the process a little bit easier for capturing that self-assessment and that pre-assessment. And the reason for that is I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The Council of Colonels, it's hard. We're going to ask very critical questions. I note that because for those that were here yesterday, I spoke and highlighted from an end-to-end 6 perspective our Navy blueprint. Please know if you have a service, an offering that you're putting together, if it is not selected as an enterprise IT service, it doesn't mean you're doing a bad job. That's not at all what that means. Rather, the designation process that we have here is to identify those key offerings and services that align into our larger gaps assessment. What are the things that the Navy, the Dawn needs as enterprise services? And so I highlight that because we've had a lot of very productive discussions at the Council of Colonels, and some of our recommendations sometimes are, hey, this is a really good thing you're doing. This isn't an enterprise IT service, but this is something that can be adopted by a PEO Digital. Maybe it is, you're bringing forward something that is a proposal for a program office, and that's a really good thing to do, but it's not a service. And so the definitions that you'll see, I think, on our SharePoint for what an enterprise IT service, please review them, please use them. And then I guess my other comment that I'll note is, please don't surprise us if you put that your resource sponsor is end-to-end 6, and you haven't talked to me or someone on my team beforehand. We've seen that come up, so please talk to your...
We added that question for you.
Yeah.
They're like, have you talked to your resource sponsor? Do they know you're here and you want more money to provide this to more people?
Exactly. So please do talk to us in advance. Hopefully your resource sponsors already know. But at the same time, being designated an enterprise IT service is not a guarantee that you will receive additional resourcing. Yep. Please know that. So if your goal here is, I want to bring forward my offering because I want to confirm and commit funding, this isn't how we do that. This is a step that helps us validate and endorse your investments and your roadmap, but it's not a guarantee. So that's really the notes that I had just as an addition, but the process has been really, really valuable for us. It's helping us at N2N6 identify that roadmap and continue in our modeling efforts. And it's great that our first designated service is the Naval IME, and that's where we build all our models on. So we're using them.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan. And I should point out, we also have, because this is naval, on the Council of Colonels, Nathan's counterpart at DDCI Marine Corps, Leonard Dark, is also on the Council of Colonels. So we have a full naval conversation. And I'll do a note, by the way, because if you noticed, we're building the tool out in native to flank speed. Understand that that is going to be prohibitive for our Marine Corps brethren to be able to submit an assessment, and I see my Marine Corps friends nodding their heads, yes. And we had a conversation about that initially when we started doing this, about how do we noted that as an issue that we're gonna have to mitigate, but knowing that flank speed and Hyperion, if we build it out in flank speed power apps right now, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're gonna get those cross-tenancy things sorted out, and this is gonna make it so that we can actually communicate better with each other across the different 365 tenancies. If that doesn't happen in a timely fashion, what we know we can do is we can take what we're building out right now, native and flank speed, because shout out to the Don CDAO team who's on the line, who's building this out for us. They have access to flank speed, not Hyperion. We can basically lift and shift and copy it over into Hyperion, and so the Marine Corps will also have a tool that they are able to use, and it'll be transparent to everybody. It'll just require us on the Council of Colonels and Shevon and I to be able to have access to both. It's a lot easier to set two of us up with access to both tenants than to apparently get cross-tenancy stuff sorted out. So that's a noted pain point that we're working through. We do still have the manual process that we can use if there's anybody in the Marine Corps who's wanting to submit it right now. Actually, we're still using the manual process for the Navy because that's not, we haven't reached MVP with our e-tool. We just wanted to show it off to you guys. We're hoping to have it ready to go live for everybody to use in the next month or two. We're reaching the end. Any other questions, comments? Yeah.
Good morning. Good job, by the way, guys. Quick question in reference to an enterprise architecture and enterprise delegation. Have you guys thought about the process that it takes once something kind of becomes OBE, lack of funding, or a process for continuing to maintain some kind of assessment? Because a lot of times tools come and go, right? Funding or technology or whatever it is. On the same context, some of them kind of fall back on the process of aligning with the standards and criteria.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question.
Thank you, Edmund. So we would just evaluate those services right back through the same process, and those candidates would come back through the Council of Colonel. We would evaluate it, and if it needs to be sunsetted, we would do that.
Yeah, and that's part of, we've noted that in the Council of Colonels as kind of one of our to-dos for this year as we continue to mature this process, because we've been going through that with this last year with Naval IME. They were the first ones designated. We needed to come back and do some reassessment and work with them on some things. So defining what does that look like for regular check-ins, for reassessing. We know NIS is going to want to come and get designated for more than what they were initially designated for. Do we need to look at everything they did before? What does that look like? So some of those are use cases that we're building out as those examples come through, and we're able to use those real-world reassessments that we're doing with Naval IME and that we'll do with NIS to flesh that out. We do also have, I'm going to call it a partnership, and I'm going to put her on the spot. Hey, Beth. Hey, Beth. Sorry. We have a partnership with, in a sense, one of the reasons Beth is on the Council of Colonels is because of her work with Operation Cattle Drive. And so when we are looking at things to be enterprise services, if we get to that point of the conversation and we want to, we've included in a couple of the designation memos, tasking that they are now required to go work with the Cattle Drive team to have a conversation about how do we start divesting of duplicative capabilities. I think we put that in the NESD memo,
Yes.
in the Naval Enterprise Service Desk memo, for them to take that next step to have a further conversation with the Cattle Drive team on how do we cattle drive all of the legacy help desks, and how can Cattle Drive help the NESD team and help PEO Digital do what they need to do to expand their scope and be able to roll out to a broader audience. And Melissa sitting next to Beth, we also work with the software modernization. You saw the questions in the demonstration of the are you a DevSecOps capability, yes, no, and the software modernization criteria. If you answer yes to that and we get the software modernization criteria assessed for you, then we reach out and we talk to Melissa and Candace and the team that's doing software modernization work, and we pass your information off to them so they can engage with you as well from a software mod standpoint. So we've got a lot of different touch points with a lot of different processes that we're continuing to flesh out and mature those touch points and make sure that we're connecting you up with everybody that you need to. And to Nathan's example of if you're not an enterprise IT service, we're going to go find who can help you do what it is you need to do in order to advance your capability being used. We're not just going to kick you out and say, not our problem. So, yes.
Yeah, just building off of the last question, I think you kind of addressed it a little bit in what you were just remarking there. And I couldn't catch it in the suite demo, but is in the upfront self-assessment or initial assessment, is there any questions asking about a capability's sunset plans? So like what happens if your funding shuts off? What happens if you are vendor locked out of some dependency or something like that? And like asking them if they have plans of how long they would allow for sunset to enable migration to something else.
We don't, and that's
But that's something that
a
we
great suggestion.
are capturing. Thank you for that.
Yeah. We do have, I had skipped over it, we do have a question in there about asking if your funding model or your funding profile, if you're anticipating a change in that in any way, shape, or form over the next 3 years. So we kind of started scratching at that, but that's a really good point of, yeah, we're learning what you're doing in order to get fully operational, but the what ifs, yeah. And that may be something that we work into like the reassessments as we go through, so. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say funding strategies, sustained funding strategies are something that we've, I'm not gonna say struggled with, but a lot of things that have come forward, how are we gonna, if we're offering enterprise services, we're not expecting, one group to pay for those, so what does that sustained funding strategy look like? Working with our resources and analysis team to hopefully set some models in place, to do that, but that's certainly, to address that question, something that we, have been thinking through.
Yeah. And that's, if anybody has any experience with this, one of the things that we've been looking at, not just for the enterprise IT service process, but kind of holistically, is how do we do cost allocation outside of a working capital fund construct? We know how to do fee for service in a working capital fund construct, that's set up. How do we do something comparable outside of the working capital fund contract? Can we? If we've got any FMR experts in here, anybody who's got experience with this in other organizations or is familiar with options, we'd love to learn about that. That's something we've been chipping away at for a while now. Really the only way that we know how to do a true fee for service is we've got working capital, we've got NIWIC people embedded in the PEOs, so the PEO can leverage that authority for the working capital fund in order to do that type of thing. And that's just added layers of bureaucracy. So we're trying to figure out within the bounds of what we are authorized to do from a statutory and policy standpoint, and really honestly just within a statutory standpoint. If it's a DON policy, a DOD policy, a Navy policy, a Marine Corps policy, we own those. We don't own the DOD ones, but if it's a self-inflicted wound, then let us know that that's a self-inflicted wound so we can open that aperture and get more creative in how we resource things. Because like we've said over and over and over again, there's no new money. There's not really much old money. Like we're just kind of making it work with what we have. And so getting creative in the way that we are able to resource things so we're not relying on resource sponsors having to figure out how to centrally fund it for one organization. Oh, we just made you an enterprise service. Now everybody in the Don wants this and all of the 4 stars are really excited about it, so make it happen. What are you not going to pay for now? We don't want that to happen. And so any experience anybody has that they can bring to the table, any ideas, even if you don't have experience with it and think, hey, let's give this a try. We'd love to knock it around and see. Yep. Any other questions? I know we're between you and tacos for lunch. That's my plan anyway. Yeah.
How many enterprise service candidates are in the queue right now?
Last look, maybe about 12 to 15 were still out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say, on the timeline, and Justin's question was how many candidates are currently in the queue. Some of you guys may be in that queue. Some have been sitting there for a little bit because we either haven't gotten a pre-assessment or they've submitted it, but they're not ready to do a self-assessment. So kind of that timeline on that earlier process slide, up until the self-assessment is complete, you guys own that timeline. How long you decide to take to complete your pre-assessment and your self-assessment, that's kind of on you. So we kind of have different clocks, different starts and stop points on the clock. The fidelity and completeness of the information you provide in your self-assessment and how much digging in we have to do at the Council of Colonels also can impact that. So that's, and we do have some that are in the queue that we have talked about are maybe better candidates for the software modernization work that's being done. So we want to get you to the right place to help advance your capability.
Please scan the QR code and submit any candidates that you think would be good for an enterprise IT service. You can submit your questions to us at that same QR code, and we will definitely be in touch with you.
And we have an email address now that goes to
We do.
me and Shevon.
Any other questions?
And we'll leave the screen up when we're done, so if you need to get closer, if you've got an old phone like mine and you need to get a little closer for the QR code, yeah. All right, thank you guys very much. Please come back after lunch for the NIS ICAM session.